right, Uncle Sam FM here. I believe this is episode 8 of my Uncle Sam FM Plays MLS series. And I am now at the playoffs. So I thought this would be kind of a good opportunity to talk about the playoff system in MLS, because obviously it's a big change from most leagues around the world. In most leagues, you have you play the season, and whoever gets through the season with the most points is the league champion. MLS, it's different. You're not playing the league regular season to win the league championship. You're doing it really to establish your seeding for the playoffs, for the which would be like a cup. It's a tournament. The better you do during the season, the easier road you're going to have to the MLS Cup final, which is that's the championship game. It's kind of like the to draw a comparison, it's like the Super Bowl of MLS, is the MLS Cup. So I did make it through the season, and this is a look at the standings for each conference. So in the East, New York City collapsed all the way to the point where they lost. Well, they finished second in the conference by 4 points to Atlanta United, who ended up with 66. And Atlanta United, in my experience in FM18, is they usually come to dominate MLS, at least in the early going. And as we look at them, we can look at Atlanta United's results. They definitely finished strong. Their last loss at all was to me in the Open Cup final, and that was over a month ago. It was a month and a half ago. Their last league loss was at Orlando City, which was all the way back in July. We're in October now, so that was 3 months ago. So in 3 months' time, they have not lost in the league. So they became an absolute juggernaut. New York City, on the other hand, there they are right there, just fell apart at the end. Their loss in the Open Cup semifinal to Atlanta United really kind of started their free fall, and they fell all the way as they just loss after loss. They had from August 25th through September 27th, they kind of started getting it back together, but then they gave themselves no chance at the end with 2 losses and a draw to end the season. So New York City FC fell apart. So Atlanta United took the East. In the West, nobody was really able to catch me. The Galaxy, theirs was absolutely a tale of 2 halves of the season. You look at their early season results, starting here, their first match of the season. Well, they lost their first 4 matches. FC Dallas, Portland, Real Salt Lake, and Vancouver, and those are all Western Conference opponents. So they did not start well. And they really didn't start turning it around till July 4th, Independence Day. They had a draw against Real Salt Lake, and then from there, they put together a string of good form. As you saw them draw 2 out of 3. They had a win there against Vancouver. But there, starting on July 29th through September 16th, they won, 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, they won 8 matches in a row. It wasn't enough to get them the conference first place, as I had already built up quite a lead by then. But they climbed all the way up to second place in the conference. So not only did they get into the playoffs, but they got home field. They'll have the second leg at home in the semifinal, and they'll get to play against a lesser opponent. Which again, that's why you play the season in MLS, is to get yourself the most advantageous opponent, to get the weakest opponent that you possibly can. And then you get the second leg at home in both the semifinal and the conference final. It's the conference semifinal and the conference final. So, as the winner of the Western Conference, I'll have the second leg of both of those at home, which is an advantage, because that means even if you tied over the 2 legs, you'll have the penalty kicks in your backyard. So, and as the Supporter Shield winner, which I did win the Supporter Shield by 6 points over Atlanta United, I will have the MLS Cup at home if I make it. The MLS Cup is hosted by whichever team has the most overall points. So if I make it to the final, no matter who I play against, I will be at home. If I fail, if I lose, then let's say Atlanta United gets to the final, then they'll host the MLS Cup. If me and Atlanta United both lose, then New York City will host if they make it. So whoever has the best record in the MLS Cup will host it. So that's kind of how that works. So now, as we look at the table for each conference, the way the MLS Cup or the MLS playoffs works is this. Okay, so each conference sends 6 teams to the playoffs. So and they each have their own conference. So there's MLS Western Conference playoffs and MLS Eastern Conference playoffs. The top 2 teams from each conference go straight to the conference semifinals. They are the number 1 and the number 2 seeds. So they automatically are in the conference semifinal. The seeds 3 through 6. So in the West, it was Sporting Kansas City, FC Dallas, San Jose, Seattle go to what's called the wild card round. And it's for both conferences. The East has a wild card and the West has a wild card. The 3rd and the 4th seeds will host. Now this is a one-off. It's a one-leg knockout played at the higher seed. So Sporting Kansas City was the 3 seed in the West. So they hosted the 6th seed Seattle Sounders, which you see the table here. Sporting Kansas City was the 3rd. Seattle was the 6th. Again, the better you do, the better season you have, the weakest opponent you will play. FC Dallas was the 4th seed, so they had to play the 5th seed San Jose in the wild card round. And both of the higher seeds won, so obviously the home field advantage helped those teams advance. In the East, however, Philadelphia, who was the 5 seed in the East, defeated Toronto FC away, and so they advanced. I have to go back down to here. So Philadelphia advanced, and then 3rd seed New England advanced. So Philadelphia is the lowest seed, so that means they will play at the number 1 seed Atlanta United in the semifinal, and then Atlanta United will host the 2nd leg. The first leg of the other conference semifinal in the East has already been played, as also the West. LA Galaxy and Sporting Kansas City. In Kansas City, they drew, so now they'll go to LA. And I'm getting ready to play my first match in the conference semifinal against FC Dallas. I've also, one thing I do sometimes, I'll experiment a little bit with tactics at the end of a season where I've secured my place, and I really, with about 6 matches to go, I qualified for the semifinals. I had already, that meant that I clinched one of the top 2 seeds. I had a huge edge, and so I used the last 6 games to put in to work on a new tactic, which, as you can see, those last 6 games went well for me. I won 4 of the 6, and I drew again at NYCFC and at Sporting Kansas City. But really, as I recall, both games I played better. Yeah, New York City FC they've got great players. So the fact that I was able to get a draw out of that, even though they had 16 shots, 5 of which were half chances, that reflected pretty well. And that, I think, was my second match in this kind of experiment. The first one against San Jose was a wild affair, 5-3, 8 goals scored. But it was interesting, obviously. Really what it amounted to was I was having to play some backups. As you can tell already, Stevie scored, Arturo Alvarez. These are not usual starters. And there was clearly it was very physical. San Jose was, well, they were stomping and kicking. They had 8 yellow cards, 7 Yeah, 7 yellow cards and a red. I had 2 yellow cards, so it was a very physical game. But I ended up winning 5-3. I think I kind of made it a little, rounded it out a little bit, I guess, kind of smoothed out the edges on it. I beat the Galaxy at home 3-0, and that was a midweek. And then I had to play my second team, most of my second team players against Minnesota, and I still won that game, even though I gave up 2 goals. Then you had the draw at Kansas City, and then a game against Chicago where I absolutely dominated. Only got 1 goal, but I don't, as I recall, Chicago did not have a single shot on target. Yeah, they had 3 shots, none on target. They gave them 1 half chance, but it wasn't even on target. So we had 70% of the ball, 20 shots, but I could only get that 1 goal in the 11th minute. So I won 1-0. So the tactic I've kind of put in is it's a 4-2-3-1. Which I need to put in my first team here, first 11. But Boniek is injured, and that hurts. That hurts. That's going to make it really difficult for me to win the league. Not to make excuses, but I am. Yeah, so Boniek is very versatile. I can put him in a lot of different places, but he is out for the season. He's out for, well, I guess he's out only a couple days. I could get him back, but so yeah, 4-2-3-1. It's the kind of the I guess sort of the concept is it's like if Guardiola. I wanted it to be like if Guardiola played a 4-2-3-1. Obviously, he doesn't. But in this, I'm a high pressing because really what it helps me to do, because I've got instead of a guy sitting in this hole, I've got an attacking midfielder up here. He's gonna push the press a little bit. There's more guys pressing their back up higher up the pitch. One of the things I do have to deal with is now I've got this gap right here, and I don't like having this gap between my back line and my holding midfielders. So both of these guys are kind of sitting back. It almost kind of creates that empty bucket idea. Have a deep-lying playmaker on support, so he's not going forward. He's kind of holding his spot. And then I've got a defensive midfielder his whole job is to win the ball, clean up in front of the back line. So to try and reduce the space between the back line and the midfield, I've pushed my defensive line all the way up. Now, I don't normally like doing that until I've had a couple seasons under my belt, when I've got players that fit that more. So to create the balance, because I do like my tactics being balanced, I've lowered my team instructions to counter, my mentality to counter. So it's kind of a hope. The idea is to hopefully get the best of both worlds with a high defensive line. So they are closing down more. The team closes down more. But because I'm on counter, it brings that down a little bit. Instead of like on standard, obviously my closing down is higher. But if I go counter, well, my tempo is lower. But I've kind of counteracted that by upping it a little bit. And then my formation's narrower, and so the idea is making the counter mentality balances out the effects of the higher defensive line. So they're being a little more cautious while also being aggressive on defense in defending. So I still have all of my front, and these front 4 guys they're closing down as max per player. So like my striker, he's closing down as much as he can. I can't raise that anymore. My wings are both closing down much more, as much as they can. I also have all the front 3 tackling harder. And then my center attacking mid, who is Tomas. This is really kind of why I did this. I wanted to put Tomas in this spot where he can get the ball and spray it to my front 3. More killer balls to those 3 guys. So he's here and he's closing down much more. So these four guys are just closing down like crazy. I got the center mid closing down like crazy. And so I'm still closing down, but now my center backs are closing down much less, holding them in place. So they're there. They're not leaving their position. It kind of reduces killer balls, but they still happen, as tend to happen with a high defensive line. The idea is to reduce those is by having these two guys at least be there, holding their position. And like I said, through experimentation so far has worked. So let's go play FC Dallas. Now it is away, and my my assistant told me in the tactical advice to raise my mentality to standard, but my assistant doesn't really understand what all I'm doing. I feel like it is standard the way it is, and if I wanted to, if he'd said defend, maybe I would, or if he would have said to control, maybe I would have. But all right, so here we go. First leg of the playoffs. Fully expect you to keep our run of form going. Midfield, I have faith in you. You guys, I don't really have faith in Chris Seitz, so I am a liar. But I'm going to tell him that I do. Try and up his morale. And let's go to the tunnel. Good form while opponents are not. I don't have any concerns about that. We're just going to go do our jobs. So while we're setting up here, getting ready to play, thought I'd talk a little bit about the playoffs. If I'm honest, I guess here's my feelings about the playoffs. Is, first of all, I do feel like let's just call it the English system, even though it's not strictly English, but the English format of the team with the most points at the end of the league season is the league champion. That to me is more valid, right? To me, it is more indicative of who is the best team over the course of the season. Oh, almost had a goal right there. At least almost put it away. That would have been nice to have a 1-0 lead in the away leg. So it's more legitimate, I guess, is the best way to put it. If you win the league in the Premier League over the course of 38 games, then to me, that's a more legitimate league championship than the way MLS does it, where you could theoretically go in as a 6th seed, and it's happened. I think one of the years Houston won it, they were the last team to qualify for the playoffs. But so you could theoretically have a mediocre season, be in the bottom half of the league, which there's 22 teams. So if you were the very last team to qualify, that means that you're the number 12 team in a 22-team league. That means you are in the lower half. So theoretically, you could then go and win the league championship, which is seemingly absurd. Because to me, you didn't earn it the way that a team in the Premier League has earned. Oh, and Acosta, who was already on a yellow, is about to get a second. So let's see what FC Dallas does to kind of hold it. I'm not going to do anything yet. If they go narrow, I'll adjust. So yeah, that's my feeling. Now, with that said, though, it also can't be argued that the playoff system adds an element of excitement. It's manufactured excitement, but it's excitement nonetheless, right? It is exciting to watch. Then there we are, up 1-0. Go by Kyoto. Nice little cross there. So yeah, it's 4-2-3-1. It's just a little more aggressive. I think it does a better job of winning the ball in their half, and then we'll patiently probe and hang on to the ball, make something happen. So yeah, and you also do you create that one match, like the Champions League final is that, and I think the World Cup final are the two most exciting single games in soccer, football, period. Like those There's nothing more exciting than a Champions League final or a World Cup final. And so playoffs, oh, my note test makes it 2. It'd be nice to just put this tie away in the first leg. Maybe get a couple more, because then I could rest some guys in the second leg and prepare for the conference final. So yeah, playoffs does help to create that, right? To create that excitement, that one match excitement. And I'm not going to try and make the argument that the MLS Cup is near the level of the World Cup final or the Champions League final, but it's still going to be your most exciting game in the MLS season. At least the most build up. You're going to have the most intensity going into that. Yeah, it doesn't change the fact that I believe that if you're asking me, like, what I believe MLS should do, I believe single table, best team over the course of the season should be the league champion, because it would just be more legitimate that way. So, but back to this match for now. I've got 6 shots, 4 on target, dominating possession. Things are looking good, and I will go to the analysis real quick. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I spend a lot more time here when I'm not recording, but because I'm not gonna dive into all the analysis. But maybe I will in a future video to kind of show what I look at. But as you can tell, there's not a huge gap from my back line to my holding midfielders. That's about where it is in my 4-3-3, that's good. That's kind of what I want. I want that back line pushed up to close that gap, so that their strikers and their attacking mids can't just sit as comfortably in that space. And so that's the theory, and for the most part it's worked. Now obviously, again, I've kind of been helped a little bit by the red card, but there's nothing I can do. I can't make them not get sent off. I feel like I was ahead when that happened anyway. Okay, and tell these guys that I have faith in them, and let's go win this thing. I'm going to keep an eye on what Dallas is doing. Looks like the right back has dropped back to defense. Looks like we're still controlling play here. There we go. Oh, come on, Martinez. He just gave that away. We deserve to give up a goal on that. Calm down, Martinez. I might need to slow the tempo. Let's do that. Let's slow the tempo a little bit. Oh, Martinez is hurt. Oh, for crap's sake. See, these are the kind of things that keep you. So, like, okay, let's just say that Martinez is my attacking mid. He is my number 10. He creates my chances. So let's say this injury is long term. Let's say he's out for at least the playoffs. So that could possibly cost me. Oh, I forgot to lower the tempo. That could cost me the MLS Cup. I could lose the cup because I've lost that player for this. But over the course of the season, I was the better team. I was the best team. That's just partly why, like, one injury at the wrong time in MLS can cost you any chance you have of winning the league, whereas you earned it over the course of the season. So yeah, if it was my choice, if I was the MLS czar, I would go single table. Kind of the problem there is you're going to have 24 teams in the league in a couple of years. So how do you create a balanced schedule without overloading the fixture list? And the reality is you can't. You can't have a first division playing 46 games, especially when you're trying to also win the Champions League. Now De La Garza's got injured. See, this is the kind of crap that makes the playoff system really, really frustrating. And it looks like Dallas has just gone uber defensive, so I might. they've got. So I'm gonna up my mentality. So kind of my hope for the future is, and I think this would be good for MLS, is right now the United Soccer League, which is the second division, and MLS kind of uses it as a reserve league in a way. It's not a reserve league. There's a lot of teams. Ooh, almost got a goal there. There's a lot of teams in the USL who are not affiliated with MLS teams. But right now, the USL has. I mean, it's the number of teams in a couple of years in USL is going to be close to 40. And so, well, and then in this last round of expansion, you had 12 teams all trying to get an MLS franchise, to get a spot in MLS. So kind of my hope is in the future that MLS expands so big. Who am I going to sub here? Let's bring Winger in from Minotas. So MLS grows so big that they split into two levels. So you have it like in the names can be whatever, but you have an MLS 1 and an MLS 2. Oh, 3. That's going to be a big challenge for Dallas to get 3 goals back in Houston. If I can hang on, if I can hold this. Nice little cross from, yeah. Yes. So yeah, my hope, like if MLS gets to 36, which is not a crazy number, there's that many cities that could support a team in MLS. Could be this with a yellow card, you idiot. Yellow card at a 3-0 lead. 5 minutes to go. So at 36, you could have 36. That's not a crazy number. There are 36 cities in the United States that could support an MLS team. I mean, you don't have to be New York. Already in Chicago could easily have a second MLS team. New York and LA both have 2, so there's no reason Chicago couldn't. In fact, there is going to be, and that's the win. There is going to be a Chicago team in USL starting in either next year or the year after. So, hey, they could be an MLS team. So you can have 36 teams in MLS. Then you split it: MLS 1, MLS 2. Play everybody twice. That's 34 matches. That's the same number of matches they play now. And then you can have promotion relegation within MLS. Now, a lot of the U.S. Pro Rel supporters would not be happy with that. They would not be satisfied with a Pro Rel system within MLS. They want it to be totally open to all the clubs, and I get that, and maybe we'll talk about that someday in the future, about kind of how I see the Pro Rel. But and then you could have your league champion be the team with the best, whoever had the best record, whoever had the most points, and then it's just more legitimate that way. All right, so Houston triumph in the El Capitan Derby. It's always fun to get a win in the playoffs over your rival, your arch nemesis. And it's okay. Martinez is out for 8 days, so that'll put him out for the second leg, but might be able to get him back fit enough to play in the conference final. Garza is out for a couple days, so he'll be back for the second leg. Must be pleased with the result, given the importance of the match. Of course, the match is with any other, and that's not a lie. I don't really do anything different just because it's the playoffs. And eye-catching passing style. That is, yes, we've made a commitment. Terrific performance. We were excellent in pretty much every area. Yep, very pleased. Minotas was faultless today, and I do always try to praise the performance of superb in front of goal. All right, well done. All right, so that's kind of the first look at MLS playoffs. I'm working on trying to get some streaming going. So what I think I'm going to try and do, I'm going to upload this video first, and then I'm going to work on setting up my stream channel. I did a little experimental stream on my Twitch account just to kind of look and see what in the world, how it works. but I can obviously tell there's some work that needs to be done to set it up because I don't want to. I want it to be decent. You know, I'm not looking to be the number one FM streamer, but I do want the product to be decent. So I'm going to put some stuff in there, and then I will probably stream the second leg of this, maybe the conference final, and then I'll do a video for the MLS Cup final. If I make it, right? I could get put out. Hey, FC Dallas could go and score 4 goals in the second leg and put me out. So there's still work to be done, but might kind of just show what I do as I go through the playoffs. So with that said, this is Uncle Sam signing off.